On a normally quiet night in the Middle East, the skies were suddenly lit up by a flurry of missiles. The normally silent radars now buzzed loudly. The world held its breath again as, for the third time, Iran retaliated. They called it Operation True Promise 3, a promise that never falters, a carefully calculated vengeance, and proof that the war is not over. But don't jump to conclusions. Each missile fired was not just an attack, but a hidden message. Behind the booming explosions, a diplomacy began to crack. There was a code being sent, not just to Israel or America, but to the entire world, that Iran was no longer willing to sit back, but was ready to play on the geopolitical stage. Iran retaliated. Just 14 hours after the Iranian skies were rained down with fire, the retaliation came. Not with words, but with wave after wave of ballistic missiles and kamikaze drones. Hundreds of missiles and drones were launched, beginning Operation True Promise 3. Nothing could stop it. 150 targets were targeted, from military bases to centers of power. 3 major air bases, Nevatim, Tel Aviv, and Ofta, were in ruins. Fighter jets burned, hangars collapsed, and once again, Israel's defenses were overwhelmed. Iron Dome, David's Sling, Arrow, their multi-billion-dollar defense systems, proved powerless against attacks from all directions and altitudes. Some missiles were intercepted, but others penetrated the defenses and hit their targets. Israel's skies were leaking. The Iron Dome defense system was badly damaged, but the attack was not over. Iran followed up by hitting the Kiryat complex in Tel Aviv, the Israeli military command center that has long been dubbed the Zionist Pentagon. 3 people were killed, dozens more were injured. Buildings were destroyed, infrastructure was crippled. Outside, chaos reigned. Civilian airports were closed, power was partially cut, and buildings were badly damaged. Tel Aviv was plunged into an unfamiliar night, without light, without direction, and without the belief that the sky could still be trusted. Iran did more than just detonate missiles. It exploded Israel's belief in its own superiority, and the world, for the first time, witnessed that dominance could collapse in an instant. On a dark night in Iran's modern history, May 14th, 2025, to be exact, Operation Rising Lion began. But don't be fooled by its grandiose name. Because what crossed the Iranian sky was not hope, but 200 Israeli fighter jets and drones that came with one goal: to destroy the heart of Iran's nuclear defense. The attacks they launched were not just empty threats. 100 strategic locations were attacked almost simultaneously, from the uranium enrichment facilities in Natanz, Fordow, to Isfahan. What was destroyed was not only buildings, but also lives. 78 people were killed. 320 others were injured. Among the victims, there were big names that could not be underestimated: the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the commander of the elite Air Force, and the former head of national security, all killed in one night. Even 9 top Iranian nuclear scientists who had been guarding the country's nuclear ambitions were sacrificed. For Iran, this was not just an ordinary attack. This was an insult, a wound that scratches the nation's pride, a wound that must be avenged. This is the inevitable turning point, when missiles are answered with missiles and promises made are paid for with blood. But before Iran retaliates, the world asks, does Israel still obey the rules of war? As the sky burns, Israel's leaders disappear. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, reportedly flew to Greece, leaving his people behind whom he called to endure the flames of Iran's retaliation. But what is more despicable is not his escape. What is more despicable is how his government chose to use its people as human shields. The Kiryat military complex, Israel's intelligence headquarters, command center, and main attack point, is located right in the middle of a densely populated city. The military hides behind schools. The missiles are hidden behind people's homes. The command center is near a playground. Then, When Iranian missiles hit military targets, Israel quickly forbids its citizens from recording the event. It forbids the broadcast of the impact of the strike. The media is restricted. The images that come out are filtered. All that is presented to the world is the destruction in Tel Aviv, a densely populated area, as if Iran had launched an indiscriminate attack. The reality is different. Iran targeted 3 major military bases and succeeded, but Israel chose to package a narrative, not the truth. When its leader flees and its people are used as shields, what is seen is not strength, but chaos covered up. In Israel, the people panic, the media is locked down, and the leader disappears. But in Tehran, what emerges is calm. No screaming, no propaganda. Iran categorically states that it is only attacking military facilities. It is their right to defend themselves. No censorship, no drama. Just a message. Aggression will be met, and if Israel attacks again, Iran's response will be limitless. The world witnessed 2 different things. One burned the truth, the other burned military bases. Operation Rising Lion was not just a surprise attack, but also a flagrant violation of international law. Israel attacked more than 100 sites, including densely populated areas. The most fatal, Iran's civilian nuclear facilities monitored by the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. Iran is full of controversy, but it is still part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty that prohibits the development of nuclear weapons. A treaty that Israel has vehemently rejected from the start. This attack was carried out without warning, without UN authority. It was a clear violation of the Geneva Conventions and a stain on the international system. When the law is no longer respected, there is only one thing left: retaliation. Before the smoke from the attack had completely cleared, the world stage began to crack. Russia immediately condemned it in the UN Parliament. Putin called Israel's attack a brutal violation of another country's sovereignty. China also spoke out, warning against double standards. Aggression is aggression, even if it is carried out by a Western ally. The Arab world, despite its frequent disagreements with Iran, joined in condemning Israel's massive attack on Iran. In Washington, some lawmakers applauded, supporting Israel and blaming Iran, even though the first strike did not come from Iran. America even helped shoot down Iranian missiles in a way that was open, direct, and shameless. Americans, on the other hand, took to the streets to protest. The European Union condemned Iran, not for attacking first, but for daring to retaliate. Such is the world stage. Truth is no longer about facts, but about who is in the front row. In war, the most frightening thing is not the first explosion, but who comes after it. Iran has already given a signal. A little damage in Israel is enough. But the world knows what comes next is no small attack. The big brother will come, America, with its NATO on its side, with false legitimacy and bombs wrapped in morality. The weapons they claim as precision action will burn the entire region. They call it precision. But lives are never precise. This is the escalation scenario where the land is burned and history writes a new chapter of the Great War in the Middle East. Or there is another option: de-escalation. Not with drones, but with diplomacy. Not with a coalition of weapons, but with global moral pressure. Because if the world continues to remain silent, the next war will not start from Israel or Iran, but from the silent stage that allows it. But the world cannot just ask, who will survive? The deeper question now echoes: what is left to save? When the missile dust has not yet settled and the cries have not stopped, one by one countries are starting to move. Not to stop the war, but to secure their position. Behind the scenes of the UN emergency meeting, quiet agreements began to be made. Not a ceasefire, but an allocation of arms supplies. Not reconciliation, but an expansion of influence. In the Mediterranean, aircraft carriers began to arrive, not with humanitarian aid, but with combat-ready jets launched every hour. In the Persian Gulf, radars were active 24 hours a day. Reserve troops were being called home. The world seemed to be moving toward one point: a war that could not be stopped by anything but time. In Tehran, national television showed the faces of the martyrs. Young people, scientists, soldiers. Their photos were plastered on the streets like shooting stars. And the people, instead of being afraid, were united in one voice. If they can kill our leader, then we have nothing to fear from losing. A dangerous mentality was born, not from ideology, but from loss. Israel, on the other hand, was experiencing no less internal pressure. Citizens began to question, is our defense as strong as propaganda? When children sleep in bunkers and schools are turned into field hospitals, even the sound of victory sounds false. There is only silence. The sound of sirens that never really stop, and of people who are slowly losing their way. Meanwhile, Washington faces a complex dilemma. On the one hand, it must show that it remains Israel's most loyal ally. On the other, domestic pressure and protest demand that America no longer be the world's policeman who only brings war. The U.S. president is caught between two microphones, one to please the lobbyists, the other to calm the people. In Moscow, Putin smiles bitterly. Every missile that explodes in the Middle East is a distraction from the war they are fighting in Ukraine. In Beijing, diplomats are preparing to rewrite the map of influence, knowing that the gaps in this chaos could be a golden opportunity. But the loneliest voices come from a place that is often forgotten: the civilian population. A mother in Rafsanjani wrote on the wall of a destroyed house, "We no longer have a home, but we still have honor. And that honor will fight even without weapons." A teenager in Tel Aviv, in a video that has gone viral on social media, says, "We grew up with fear, but now we are adults with anger. We need peace, not empty pride." This is the new narrative that is emerging, not just about military power, but about human values, about the price of victory paid in schools that collapse, and futures that explode before they can be built. Because in the end, war never writes winners. It only writes more tombstones, more children who lose their parents, and more worlds that lose their conscience.